This is Felt Recoil.
This is the Felt Recoil Podcast. My name is Kris, and across from me, the ever hetero life mate of mine named Patrick. And this is episode number 30, and we're glad you're here. It's going to be a little bit of a somber start, and we'll try to not get too heated. Give you this much. It is Wednesday, June 14th as we record this. Wait a second, am I lying? Yes, 14th. And today there was a shooting in Alexandria, Virginia, and we have a United States Congressman in critical condition. Feels very reminiscent of the Gabby Gifford shooting, except fortunately so far, as of 10 o'clock Wednesday night, the only person dead in this instance is the bad guy, and that's a good thing. So it's a good time to make our charity of choice, the War Fund. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office has a war fund for wounded and recovering officers, and this was started a few years ago by a friend of ours and a friend of his as well, and they started raising money so when a deputy is shot or hurt in the line of duty, they go out of work. And one thing we've learned is that your local sheriff's office may not cover all the expenses, which is very weird to me, to assume you can be a police officer, you can do your job 100% correctly, but if somebody shoots you, the sheriff's office will stop paying you. The government is so stupid. The government is so stupid. It can't even take care of its own people the way it should. I mean, the best of the best serving in the streets, and if they get hurt, the government won't take care of them. My God. All right. I'm trying not to get too fired up before we even get started. But our buddy Kris and his friend started the War Fund. It's a fantastic endeavor. You can learn more about it at gcso.org/warfund5K. You go there or just go to feltrecoilshow.com. We have a link there where you can learn more about them. But all money raised goes to assist deputies in the event that they're injured in the line of duty and they need money to help make ends meet. Remember this about giving to charities. I say it a lot. I hope you'll remember it. Either the government decides how your tax money gets spent, teaching Africans how to wash their genitals, legitimately a thing we did, $1 million to teach Africans how to wash their private areas, or you give it to people like the War Fund and you tell the government, screw you, I already spent my taxes on this, and there's nothing they can do about it because it's a legal way for you to say, I paid my taxes and here's how I paid them. All right, the War Fund. I'm sure they're so happy with that ringing endorsement. I should
get a call tomorrow and Kris is going to go, hey, listen, appreciate what you did for us. If you could just not do that anymore, that'd be great.
The intent is there, but we'd rather you just not. Don't worry about us.
I do want to say, too,
we'll handle this.
If you want to get involved with the War Fund, they have a couple of cool ways you can do so. They do a golf tournament, they do a 5K run, and they do a shooting competition annually.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Shooting competition we've partaken in before. It's a lot of fun. And I've got a link up right now to at our Facebook page. If you find us, Felt Recoil Show on Facebook, you'll see a link to the 5K information. All right. So here's what's happening. We're going to play the audio for you. If you don't know, today, a 66-year-old Illinois man opened fire on lawmakers as they were practicing for a charity baseball game. This is it as it happens. A little lull here. What was that, about 6 shots, you think?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
4 more. Now, this all still sounds like rifle, so this is the bad guy. Reports are he had a rifle. Sounds like he's being engaged, being told to put the gun down. Man, that sounds close. So at this point in the video, you can kind of see officers and other people taking concealment and cover behind a building. Man, feels like a long time, right? That's 90 seconds. This is a minute and a half. This is how quickly things can go really, really bad in real life.
Do we know where he's at? Do we know where he's at?
He's behind home plate. You call 911?
I assume people have been calling 911 already.
This video and audio, courtesy of the Daily Mail, by the way. So a quick rundown. The 66-year-old died in hospital after being shot by Capitol Police. The shooter, I mean, still going on. You're 2.5 minutes in. This bystander doesn't know where the guy is, can't get eyes on him. But man, he sure sounds close.
Is that guy okay out there? The guy been shot, is he okay? Is anybody talking to him?
Sounds awful calm to be in the middle of that.
Yeah, he's behind the bunker. Stay down! Stay down! Stay down!
All right, so it just kind of continues from there. That's 4 minutes of audio. Just, I mean, at that point, you're hoping and praying that somebody shows up and does something. There's a lot of focus being put. If you read the rundown, there's a lot of focus being put on the fact that this guy was a staunch Bernie supporter. By every measure, hated Republicans, hated people who disagreed with his way of thought. The Daily Mail describes him as a staunch Democrat who documented his hatred for President Trump on social media pages. He moved from his home in Illinois to Virginia 2 months ago and had been living out of his car, real winner. Had a long criminal history, which includes an assault charge for punching his female neighbor as she tried to protect his daughter from him. In 2006, Steve Scalise, the House Majority Whip, is in critical condition after being shot. He was taking part in the GOP practice session with other politicians. I know there was a congressman who said that the gunman asked him if they were Democrats or Republicans on the field as he was getting ready to open fire. So he had charges, by the way, but no convictions for DUI, domestic battery, pointing a gun at a relative, a felony in South Carolina, by the way. If you point a gun at anybody in South Carolina in a threatening way, loaded or unloaded, that's an automatic felony. So this guy, I don't know how he got his gun, but by every measure of today's standards, you don't get a gun if you're a guy like this. Not in a legal sense, not anywhere near a legal sense. Anyway, he hated Trump, and he was actually a volunteer for the Bernie Sanders campaign. And there's a lot of people trying to paint the picture that, well, you know, this is how Bernie and his supporters think, and they're violent people. But I think there's an important thing that I haven't heard this mentioned, so I don't know. But remember that when any elected official is attacked in any way whatsoever, that is an attack on the people that put them in office. It's not an attack on that person as much as it's also an attack on the people who voted for them. The members of Congress are representatives of the people. So this man is not just attacking the congressman, he's attacking the people. So I'm leery and I worry when people start saying, well, it's because he was a Bernie supporter, or it's because of this or because of that. Because, A, I doubt Bernie had anything to do with this. This guy's just obviously mentally ill. And
he's already basically disavowed the connection.
Yeah, he was pretty quick on it, too. But you got a mentally disturbed person who most likely wasn't able to get the help he needed. We had an interesting conversation with a family friend this week about a child with special needs that the school system has basically abandoned and said, best of luck to you. We'll give the child a pass, and we'll just pass the child along to the next grade, and then eventually they'll leave here with no life skills, and we haven't helped them in any way. And you look at something like that, if that's how someone who isn't, and this isn't a special needs child who's mentally disturbed or has any severe issues, this is just someone who needs some special attention and some TLC as they go through the learning process, as they try and become an adult. And the system won't help them. The government doesn't help the people. The government is not in the business of helping the people. Did you drive down Tanner Road to get to my house today? Did you see? I mean, how good is that? There's your government in action. It's taking these people a week to repave one section of a road. I leave my house the other day, and they're all looking at me like, where are you going? And they literally walk into my car, and the guy goes, where are you headed? I said, to work. And he goes, which direction? I go, to the right. And he goes, gonna be a minute. I'm like, of course it is. Of course it is. So the government always acts on this, premise of, not a premise. The government maintains a facade that it's there to help you, but it is not. It is not. It is not. And I'm not saying the government is to blame here, but what I'm telling you is the system for treating mental health issues in this country is broken. And I don't think it's a conversation to be had about who this guy supported and what his politics were, because I don't think those played a role. Before you write me off, I can see the narrative of, well, you have a volatile media who hates the president, and you have people like Reza Aslan, who's willing to call Trump a piece of SH blah, 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 and be employed by CNN when he does it. Those people exist, and they encourage the mentally ill to act out this way. I think they do have culpability in it, but I don't think that means that being a Bernie supporter turns you into a violent person, just as much as, supporting whoever it was Eric Rudolph supported turned him into a violent person that bombed abortion clinics, or whoever Timothy McVeigh or the Unabomber might have supported, Ted Kaczynski. Whoever those people supported is irrelevant, because those are all mentally disturbed individuals who you couldn't make a case that the politics of a certain individual persuaded them to do what they did. Does Bernie Sanders adhere to socialism and communism, which is a violent ideology? Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at Venezuela. But he's not out there advocating a violent overthrow of the government. He's actually running for office. Your bigger concern should be the fact that there are people in this country willing to vote for him so they can live in a violent police state like Venezuela. That should be our concern. And my bigger concern here is we get focused on who the guy voted for, what his politics were, and we forget the fact that just as much as he's attacking the people who voted for Scalise and voted for other Republicans and voted for Donald Trump, we also have to understand that he's involved with a group of people willing to vote for somebody like Bernie Sanders, who stands a chance at winning office and has won office up in the Northeast, because not enough people will do their homework. Not enough people know better to vote against him. They're willing to vote for a guy based on his utopian principles and ideas that we've seen fail and murder thousands of people. But none of that is the reason this guy went off and shot people.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Okay.
I really do. But I feel like what really needs to happen right now is we need to blame the gun, first and foremost. And then we need to talk about his race.
Okay.
But we also need to not jump to any conclusions.
Let's not do any of that. Isn't it interesting, by the way?
It's an isolated incident. Not believed to be linked to terror.
Not at all. If you get on Twitter at all, you're going to find articles of the many different people who have tweeted unbelievably vulgar responses to this. There was a Tennessee congresswoman who received an email saying 1 down, 215 to go. These are, it's amazing to me that people are out there, A, dumb enough to do things like that, but B, buying into the idea that this is how you react when you lose at the polls. The office, this is from thehill.com. Claudia Tenney, I think it is, Tenney. She's a Republican out of New York, by the way. So I'm wrong, not Tennessee. I think I saw her name, and anyway, bad memory by association there. So Republican out of New York received a threatening email with the subject line, 1 down, 216 to go, shortly after the shooting. And the email read, "Did you not expect this? When you take away ordinary people's very lives in order to pay off the wealthiest among us, your own lives are forfeit. Certainly, your souls and morality were lost long before. Good riddance." There were other tweets out there where people were saying it could be considered self-defense because the Republicans are going after health care. So if this guy had some terminal illness, the case could be made that it's self-defense. Some really, really strange reactions. I don't remember a single story after Gabby Giffords got shot of conservatives reacting that way to her. I remember a lot of empathy, a lot of concern. We found out Jared Loeffner, wasn't that his name? No, that was the theater shooter, right? I don't remember.
Yeah, they all kind of run together.
It's really not worth remembering their names anyway. So her shooter was a crazy liberal as well. So it wasn't political at that time either. It's just a mentally ill guy. So anyway, I worry about, I got kids. So you do see stuff like this and you think, man, this is what they're growing up with. People, we're now literally trying to kill each other. Like, it's not a joke anymore. Literally, people are trying to kill elected representatives. And here's the difference. This is the big difference. This was over ideological differences. Gabby Giffords, there was no rhyme or reason. It was just a kid who was mentally disturbed, who had been kicked out of college because he was mentally disturbed. If I'm not mistaken, I won't say that because I don't remember if that's fact or not. But
Colorado theater guy was kicked out of school.
Yes.
I don't know about the Gabby Giffords guy.
I'm pretty sure. Was it the theater shooter was the one who they had the video of him walking around his campus?
Yeah,
Am I conflating those two things? All right, here's the point. The Giffords shooting wasn't because of Giffords' ideology, but the Republicans that were shot today were shot because of their ideology. Okay? So you do have people, and I'm just going to say, I don't know that they exist on both sides of the aisle, but now the left is like how do I do this and not sound completely racist? You know how I say the black community has a PR problem? Because A, they only garner negative press, okay? So maybe the media is at fault for some of that. B, they don't do themselves any favors. C, world star hip hop, okay? And then C, the statistics inside the black community could really use some work, okay? The single parent households, the crimes committed are pretty disproportionate. We could work on that. It's a PR problem, okay? It's not a race problem. It's a culture problem and a PR problem. You need to fix it. And I think there's good black people out there working to fix it. The left now has the same problem because now you have a guy who literally tried to kill other people, and you would be hard-pressed to argue against the fact that the tone of your discourse is one of these people deserve to die. I mean, that argument can be made quite easily, but I don't think that means they advocated what happened or coordinated what happened. But
it seems to me this has been brewing since the election, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're in a place where there is no civil conversation. You can't have a political conversation without being labeled a racist or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of to the point where I'm trying to, I guess I'm just not surprised by it. I guess that's the main thing. That's my takeaway, is that it doesn't surprise me in the least. And I I think it was probably only a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We've been at a boiling point for a very, very long time, and now it's just boiled over. And
it's funny because you talk about overthrowing the government and doing so civilly, doing it with your votes, through your expression, and then here we have someone potentially on the other side of the fence,
right,
who is doing what a lot of conservatives, we get lumped into that category of, well, these are the guys with the guns that are anti-government and yada, yada, yada. But here you have a guy who's actually acting on that.
And,
who the stereotype doesn't really fit the mold, right?
I mean, basically a homeless loser, as Trump would call him. And, he's living out of his van and planning a carnage like this, and fortunately he's dead now. Can't hurt anybody else. You just hope it stops there, because now legitimately we have to ask ourselves the question of, okay, so what happens if it happens again? And what happens if it happens a second or third time? What do we do next? So I don't know. It's still fresh. We're still getting updates on Scalise and his condition. And
I don't know if you noticed, but Trump actually has been receiving praise from both sides of the aisle in his handling of it.
Yeah, and I don't think he could have done anything better than just kind of ignore any sort of partisanship. He didn't get in any arguments about, policy. You just leave it alone and say, hey, man, prayers for everybody. And this is tragic when it happens to anybody. And, don't let it divide any more than we obviously already are. And I'll tell you this, keep it in mind, the guy had a lengthy criminal history, shouldn't have had a gun in the first place. So however he got it, it was most likely not legal. All right, anyway, keep your eye on it. Probably have more next week because, again, it's still fresh, and hopefully this becomes a time for everybody. Here's a takeaway. Here you go. Here's an idea. Why don't we let this be a lesson for all of us? Hopefully, this is a way that only a bad guy dies. Good guy gets hurt, but he recovers fully. We're hoping. And then we can go, okay, wait, why don't we all just calm down a bit? Why don't we just acknowledge it's not worth it? Policy differences aside, let's stop getting everybody so worked up that they're willing to go out and start shooting people. Okay? All right. Remember, that's why we don't like James Yeager so much, because the man literally said if Obama gets elected again, it's going to be time to start shooting people. We can't forgive that. Like, that is spoken from the heart, off the hip, like he does everything else. That's why it's hard to ever do business with a guy like that, is because you don't know when he'll do that again. You don't know when he'll do that again.
He does kind of remind me of Trump, just with the word vomit.
There you go. All right. By the way, a writer for the Huffington Post tweeted, Jesse Ben said, for violent resistance to work, it needs to be more organized. Individual acts can be understandable, but likely counterproductive and ineffective. So
there's your understanding.
That's your tolerant left.
Your bleeding heart liberals right there.
The tolerant left. All right. So obviously thoughts and prayers for them, flags at half staff. Isn't it funny, though? Again, they don't take long. Nobody ever takes long to try and turn it into a gun issue. This lady, this is on NBC News. Okay? NBC News is running a special report. It says, Scalise among those shot at the congressional baseball practice. Police say the suspect is in custody. You're not going to believe this is real, but this actually happened. Listen to this lady.
Or do we know at this point?
It depends on the weapon, but there is a point where we were listening to some of the interviews with the representatives. One of them said that there was a pause, a moment, and he was able to leave where he was exposed and run away. So that might have been a reload. So the difference is a pistol can fire one round at a time. Pop, 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 which is what the Capitol Police were carrying. This individual had a rifle. Semi-automatic means that you can switch it to a point where it fires pop, 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 multiple rounds.
Some of the lawmakers thought they had heard 50 to 60 shots.
Yes.
Who knows? You know, you're a witness, you're hearing, who knows, but that's what it sounded like.
Yes,
them.
and it's very likely that that's the type of weapon that he's using. That is the type of weapon that we see in these mass shooting attacks. And I have to say, it's pretty remarkable that the police were able to stop them with from what we're hearing, their pistols.
That, I don't know that lady's name or how to pronounce it. Something like Evie Pomperopius or Evie Pompous Jackass, I think is the legal Pomporus. Anyway, the important thing is her credential for being on NBC News. Former Secret Service agent. Former Secret Service agent.
I think I know why it might be former.
Now, yes, because A, she's an idiot. B, she's dumb. And C, she's a moron. But also, how are you in the Secret Service and you don't know what a semi-automatic... Let's just play this scenario out. Old Evie is in the White House. ISIS kicks down the door. The Secret Service agent next to her goes, Evie, take the rifle. Tosses her the rifle, and Evie thinks, great, it's semi-auto. Pulls the trigger, holds it down, and cannot figure out why only one round went off and then dies because ISIS killed her. She was a Secret Service agent.
What does the Secret Service do?
Protects the president.
And?
Congress.
What else do they do?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't they monitor like counterfeit money and that kind of stuff?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so maybe that's what she did. She did some like white collar crime stuff.
I see.
She has no idea, and they just said, "Hey, weren't you in the Secret Service? Come on, you want to be on TV?" She just happened to be roaming the halls of NBC, and they're like, "Oh, we need somebody, anybody, you'll do."
The only place that semi-automatic can get confusing in my book is with shotguns, because you have a pump action shotgun. It's technically like a single shot until you pump the action again manually, and it'll fire another round. Okay. But then if you have a semi-automatic shotgun, you can load all 5 rounds and you don't have to pump anything for them to shot. But it's still only, in each of those designs, it's 1 shot per pull of the trigger. Okay? So, yeah, that's a little confusing because that's a blanket way to describe semi-automatic firearms is 1 shot, 1 pull of the trigger equals 1 round down range, if you will. So, a revolver is a semi-automatic pistol. A Glock 19 is a semi-auto. 1911s are typically semi-autos. Now, of course, if you work for a government agency, you probably did have 3-round burst rifles and full automatics and suppressors that didn't have tax stamps on them and SBRs. I mean, you're an agent of the state. The law doesn't apply to you. We know that. That's great and all that. But the point is, she is a Secret Service agent. Let me tell you a little story about work. I was at work this week, and a gentleman came in who I think was buying his first AR-15, God bless him, and he was the nicest guy in the world, and he asked if he could take his rifle apart and examine it, and I was like, yeah, sure, of course you can. It took him about 20 minutes. If you know anything about an AR-15, if you know anything, you can get an AR-15 probably completely field stripped back together again. Let's just say you're going to even like take the bolt carrier group out and remove the bolt itself all the way down, all the pins out and everything, okay? Cam pin and all that's out, and you're going to just look at everything and put it all back together. What do you say, 3 minutes tops? If you're moving, if you're going to go fast.
If you know what you're doing.
You know what you're doing. And even if you're giving everything a good once over, probably 5 minutes. I'm not exaggerating that it took this gentleman somewhere between 6 and 10 minutes just to get the bolt carrier group out of the rifle. I was like... I wanted to help him, but he was so adamant about, I'm going to take it down. He was a nice guy, but he was arrogant, and he didn't know what he was doing. And he then walked over and said, hey, let me see a SIG 320. And I gave him a SIG 320, and he asked where the decocker was. Now, maybe that's not funny to you.
Over there on the 226.
Right. If that's not funny to you, let me draw you a parallel. So the SIG 320 is a striker-fired pistol, which means...
Modular, sir.
Modular striker-fired pistol. It's the best because the Army uses it, and it's modular. And in its modularity does not include a decocker. So it's modular. So
how does it work then?
But it doesn't need one.
I don't get it.
Here's the point. If you know nothing about guns, take this with you. It's as if he got into an automatic transmission truck and asked the sales guy, where's the clutch and the gear shifter? And the sales guy goes, well, it's an automatic. And he goes, right. So Why are they not putting clutches in them? Because you don't need it with an automatic. I understand that. And this is legitimately what happened. So when I said, well, it's a striker fire, it's 320. They don't have them. He looked at it and he goes, so I guess they're just getting away from him in the 320s. And I didn't have the heart to really look like I was beating up on the guy. So as I'm trying to think about it,
you're so much nicer than I am.
My coworker stepped in and said, well, sir, it's a striker fire design. And with a striker fire, your safeties are all internal. And a striker, you still need a decocker with a striker fire. And I could tell he still didn't understand, but he hands it back and he wanted to just... My point here is this. There are times when the best thing you can do is just not open your mouth. And if you want to buy a gun that you're not really sure about, take it home and take it apart. Or say to the sales guy, hey, can you show me how to take this apart? And can you tell me what this does and what this is? No problem. Because now you have let everyone in the room know, I know my place, right? I'm not trying to be a rude person to you. Maybe you know more than I do. For instance, when I go in certain places and I say, hey, man, I don't really know what I'm looking at here. Can you help me with this? I try and always be just overly clear. I'm not going to have an opinion. You help me. My point is, there's times you just keep your mouth shut. And so as I listen to this woman and she says, well, I was a former Secret Service agent, so of course I know everything there is to know about guns. No, you don't. No, you don't. I sold an LCP to a South Carolina sled agent who said this is the best gun because all the other sled agents are carrying it as a backup. And I laughed in her face, legitimately laughed, and was like, okay. And she goes, you don't agree? I was like, no, not really. But I didn't know what else to do because I was already laughing because she was very much convinced it's the best gun because a sled agent carries it as a backup. I was like, okay, great. You will die. Probably not. The LCP's not going to get you killed. You'll be all right. But it's just a terrible gun. It's a terrible gun. Much like the gentleman who came in tonight and said, yo, let me check out that LC9. I read online. It's awesome. And I said, okay. And I handed it to him and he goes, well, I got to tell you, I was shooting the one on your range and I thought maybe just that one was jacked up, but this one's the same way. And I was like, yeah, it's an LC9. What do you want, man? It's a cheap gun made by a cheap company that doesn't even guarantee their product. Rant over on that. Back to the lady. The point is that gentleman with the LC9 recognized, okay, I've read some stuff. Let me go verify. Remember what Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify? So here's the dolts on NBC News, and they hear this woman going, yeah, man, with a handgun just goes rat, tat, tat. But with the rifle, it goes rat, tat, tat. And you got to die. I'm so surprised. How about this then? Here's what's great about it. Let's just assume I'm on NBC News with her because I'd be very happy she said it. And I'd go, do you guys agree with that? And they'd go, sure. And I go, great. Let's just work off that premise. Let's assume it's true. What you just said is that rifle, because you hate it, like you're saying, because, this is what we see in all the mass shootings. So it's superior to the weaker handgun, correct? Yes, it is. Okay, but what these guys proved is that a well-trained man with the weaker handgun can beat the bad guy with the more powerful rifle. Therefore, your argument for stronger gun control on that more powerful rifle is invalid. And it's certainly invalidated on the weaker handgun that you think isn't as effective as the powerful rifle, even though it obviously is. Okay? So now you no longer have any validity. You have no clout to have any sort of conversation about let's outlaw the evil assault rifles. Rumor is what, Patrick? It was
apparently it was an AK, allegedly.
And you said that was kind of coincidental because
commies like them.
That's right. So
it's a commie gun.
Commie gun for a communist supporter who goes out and shoots Republicans and then dies, pray to God, from a nice American-made handgun of some sort. But now all arguments for gun control are invalid. So let's accept this lady. Let's not correct her, but then let's use her argument against her. If the gun is the weaker weapon, we've now proven that the weaker weapon in the hands of the well-trained shooter is much better to have than nothing. Nothing.
Do you think it's funny that the anchors on that show, which I have no idea what show that was on NBC.
I think it was just a couple of random people breaking in the middle of the day on NBC because, the shooting was happening.
The guy used to be an anchor at the NBC affiliate in Columbia when I lived down there. I don't remember his name. But that's besides the point. The definition of semi.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, for semi-automatic.
No, just for the word semi.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sorry.
A combining form borrowed from Latin meaning half, freely prefixed to English words of any origin, now sometimes with the senses partially, incompletely, or somewhat. The first instance that they use, or example, I should say, is semi-automatic. But these doofuses decided we're just going to let that word semi fly. And the thing about that is, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because a lot of times on these talking head shows, they will say, well, yeah, he was using an automatic rifle. I remember that distinctly after Sandy Hook.
All the time.
After the Colorado theater shooting, it was, he was using an automatic rifle. They were negating the word semi or the prefix semi and just pretending as if this guy had some sort of machine gun, when in fact none of these guys that I'm aware of in any of these mass shooting incidents have used actual machine guns.
This is what I want to know. You're exactly right. Exactly. I have nothing to add to that because I think that's just 100% correct. We get worked up about the guns. We lie about the guns involved. But what's the one thing no one ever brings up? When are we going to sue social media outlets for allowing these people to do what they do? Meaning, this guy was on social media saying it's time to destroy Trump and company. He was a member of a Facebook group that was dedicated to eliminating Republicans. The violent rhetoric on this guy's page is there. It's there, and Facebook knew it was there, and Facebook supposedly monitors this stuff. Listen, we have a promo on YouTube that's just a clip. It's now on. If you go to our Facebook page, by the way, instead of a banner picture, you can now put videos up, and it's when you go to the page, it plays. It's nothing but a bunch of quick clips put back to back to back to back of us out in the field shooting guns or in here recording the podcast, whatever we do. YouTube won't allow us to monetize it because they say it's not advertiser friendly. Guess what? I'm okay with that. It's their platform. We want to use it. We want to make the $14 a month we're able to make off YouTube, and that's okay. That's okay with me. I got no problem with it, okay? But Facebook and YouTube and the like cannot tell me that my content isn't user-friendly or advertiser-friendly, and they can't give me that frowned-upon status and then allow people like this to say what they say, then commit act of violence and get away scot-free on it. To me, they're culpable in the sense of if they allow these groups to exist and these groups to use their platform who are openly talking about violence, by the way, the Antifas of the world, the Occupy Democrats of the world, all these groups who have openly embraced violence as an acceptable recourse to things with which they do not agree. Why are we not seeing class action suits from the families of the victims against these social media platforms? I think they're great platforms, don't get me wrong, but if they're going to say that they have a moral high ground that they stand upon where they don't allow certain things, then to me, the implication is made that that type of violent rhetoric wouldn't be allowed to fester. So the case should be made against them that you're selling your product as if you don't allow certain things, but then you do, and now it's gotten people killed or it's gotten people hurt. So why aren't you doing anything about that? Because I'm telling you this right now, they will shut down our videos immediately. When we uploaded all the podcasts to YouTube, immediately a few of them got flagged because terrorism was in the title, or terrorism was a tag, or ISIS was a tag, or whatever it was that I tagged to, if somebody was searching a term, terrorist attack in Manchester, whatever the case may be, and it was part of that episode, I wanted them to, see that episode. And immediately that stuff was flagged. So they have algorithms and they have real people that are looking at this, but somehow this stuff's slipping through. They need to be held accountable. And only because they are giving the impression, and they are implying heavily, I think, that they're creating a safe environment that's free of the violent rhetoric and the racism and all the other stuff that they say they hate. And they crack down on conservatives big time, but then this stuff's allowed to fester.
Yeah, it's definitely a double standard there, because I've seen a lot of articles where they're talking about how you can have those, what I would consider a hate group towards a certain group of people, but if it's the same group just pointed in a different direction, somehow that's able to stand, which is very odd to me. How they have this weird definition that only goes in one direction of what hate speech is,
right,
or violent rhetoric or whatever you want to call it, but it's definitely there. And specifically with Facebook, I don't know how much that sort of seeps into all the the Twitter sphere and all those other things, because I'm not really on those things, but it's there, it exists, and they don't seem to want to do anything about it.
Well, you can see the gun community is avid on Instagram. Facebook does not get the reach with the gun community that Instagram does, because the minute, I run social media for the company I work for, and we post, I post a lot of pictures of guns that we have specials on and things within the store, and we've been banned twice now. And it's simply because we'll post a picture of something, I use the wrong hashtag, meaning, let's just say I think the last time I caught on to it last time because I hashtagged it like guns or guns on Facebook or something, and then it dawned on me later, some knucklehead probably just searched it and went through and reported everybody. Yep. So don't do that.
It's probably the guy that bought the AK that was living in his van in D.C.
Yeah, maybe, it could be, because I'm sure he would agree with that, which is the great irony here. Here's a guy who supports Bernie Sanders. And again, I don't think it's Bernie's fault, and I don't think Bernie's advocated for it, but Bernie would advocate that guys like that and guys like me, neither one of us should be allowed to own guns. Only the state. Only the state. So luckily, Bernie's laws weren't in place for this guy, so he could try and carry out his mayhem.
I think Bernie said you could own one if you owned a farm.
Oh,
so
did he?
So he's a pretty fair guy.
Okay, yeah. Just fire 2 shots outside the house. Buy a shotgun. What a bunch of idiots. Anyway, so I just want final thought. I'm glad he's dead and nobody else is, and I mean that. I have this thing where I just don't care when people like that die. I know they're a soul, and they have to spend eternity somewhere, but he had 66 years to figure it out, and if that's the way it chose to go out. We have this conversation with people about shooting intruders in your house, and that's a thing you have to come to terms with. Could you take another person's life? And you betcha, because my family and I decided to stay home and live a peaceful life, and that person, whomever it is, decided to come in my house to do God knows what to my wife and kids, I will kill them, and I will kill them swiftly, and I will kill them without any remorse. I have no problem with that, because they made a decision and I made a decision. It wasn't my decision to come in and threaten me and my family. It wasn't the congressman's decision today to go out there and be sitting ducks. So fortunately, that guy's dead, and nobody else is in the path of harm. And then I think, as gun owners, we can look at it that way as well for intruders in our house. Let's say I don't shoot and kill this guy. I had a police officer tell me the other day, by the way, if I have somebody in my house, man, I just, I don't want to kill anybody, man, but I'll hurt them. I'll try my best to, keep them down till help arrives. And I didn't know how to tell the cop, no, kill them.
Help's not coming.
Because help will be there in 10 minutes. Okay?
Which is the same as not coming.
Think of the day and age we live in. That guy will come back. They will come back and hurt you, or they'll go hurt somebody else.
I don't want to look over my shoulder the rest of my life.
I live in a state where I don't have to decide why you're in my home. And criminals know that. Your ignorance of the law is no excuse. So you should know as a criminal that if you break into my house, I don't have to figure out why you're there to use deadly force against you. All I have to know is you weren't invited. It's 2 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't care. You come through my front door. It's me and my kids here. You're probably gonna die. You're probably gonna die pretty quick. So anyway, the point there is,
I'll text you when I'm on the way over.
Yeah. I had a cousin spook my wife one night by leaving a gift on the door. And opening, we have a glass door and then our regular door, and it sounded to my wife like someone was trying to come through the front door, because my cousin had come over unannounced and jiggled the door handle and left a gift wrapped around it. But when my wife looked out, all she saw was a dark vehicle pulling away from the house.
Yeah, I seem to remember that. Yeah. I also seem to remember you texting me that, and I was like getting in the car to come over here because I was like, well, we're gonna find them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you're like, all right, stand down.
Yep. it's kind of a funny thing because I said, hey, you know, my wife called me and was like, I don't know what to do. I said, you call the police. Call the police right now. I'm on the way. And so I bolted home, and the officer showed up and was awesome. Was just a super nice guy. Helped me look around the outside of the house, and, you know, just made sure everybody was comfortable before he left. And he said, I'll stay in the area, no worries. And then as he leaves, we start walking up the steps, and there's a little gift bag sitting there. And I go, what's that? And my wife goes, oh, my goodness. I was like, is that what's going on? Somebody left a gift on the porch? And that's what it was. All right, anyway. Why was all that brought up? Oh, yes. Because guys like this made their decision, and someone coming into your house has made theirs, and if you don't handle it, they might hurt somebody else. That's the way I view it. They will either hurt your family or they will hurt someone else's family in the future. So if you can fix that problem for somebody, so be it. All right, Steve Scalise is still in critical condition, so thoughts and prayers for the representative of the 1st District of Louisiana. You know, he's a gun-friendly guy. In 2015, Scalise and Mooney drew up a gun bill that would remove burdens on law-abiding gun owners. Really, this was, from what I understand, an interstate commerce bill where if you went to... So I live in South Carolina. If I were to drive up to North Carolina and find a handgun I wanted to buy, as long as I did it within the law of that state, and as long as I was within the law of my own state, I could buy the handgun. Right now, the federal government says I'm not allowed to do that. If you drive out of state right now, you can only buy long guns. That seems to be something, by the way, not a lot of people are aware of. You cannot drive out of state and buy a lower receiver or a barreled receiver for your AK or a pistol grip shotgun or a suppressor or any of that. You basically just imagine that you're buying rifles and rifles alone, and that'll keep you safe. But
And this is not new.
No, this is fairly old, from the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But interstate handgun sales are a no-no. And there's nothing the companies can do about it. That's the federal government involved there. So anyway, Scalise and Mooney tried to rid that. So obviously he's gotten a lot of flack today from certain people who are, you know, calling this karma. I did see one person tweet that this was karma because he supported guns, as disgusting as that is. But PMAG has an update on a way that lawmakers might be getting creative with the Hearing Protection Act.
Yeah, man. So, as everyone knows who work in a gun store, and we get the question every day, what's going on with the HPA? And frankly, my answer is not a lot, because there's not a lot that's been going on.
It moved to committee.
Like I was saying, not a lot going on. I literally had a guy
just today, right?
Had a guy come in the other day and go, "Hey, so that thing passed, right?"
It's so heartbreaking.
What thing? You know, the thing with the silencers. No. No, it didn't. But it seems to be a pretty regular occurrence. So I think if I'm reading this correctly, what is happening here is Representative Duncan here from the upstate of South Carolina, along with Gene Green, Democrat from Texas, are basically rolling the Hearing Protection Act into the SHARE Act, which stands for Sportsman's Heritage and Recreational Enhancement. And what that is basically a conservation bill more than anything else. It's going to expand some hunting and fishing regulations throughout the country and basically help out in the way of conservation more than anything else. It's about 70 some odd page bill, and I started reading it and then I fell asleep. So I gave up on that. But what they have done is they've essentially hidden the Hearing Protection Act about 3/4 of the way down in this bill. And the bill itself, I think, actually received a lot of support about a year ago.
Yeah, 148 co-sponsors.
Yep. So and essentially, the way I'm reading it, it was just shy of making it to Obama's desk. And
right.
And they basically stopped because they figured he would just nix it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like when the rain hits the witch in Oz. I mean,
well, I'm not even talking about the HPA. I'm talking about the SHARE Act itself too.
Oh, okay.
So, but yes, correct. Everyone knew, and this is because the HPA was introduced October 2015, and everybody knew then that it was a giant waste of time as long as Obama was still sitting at that desk.
Well, you know, can I just highlight one thing? I want to be very, very sure you understand when Patrick's talking about the Sportsman Heritage and Recreational Enhancement Act, the SHARE Act, always remind your liberal friends, ask them, what is the largest contributing group of people in the United States to wildlife and land conservation? What's the largest contributing group?
I'm going to go off on a limb here.
Tell
I'm
me.
going to say Bernie supporters.
Well, I was about to dig a big hole there. Because it is gun enthusiasts. And when you buy firearms, yeah, well,
Too soon.
I know. I didn't say anything. What are you talking? I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything about the fact that man bought a gun and ammo, and there's a tax tacked on top of both of those things that goes straight to the federal government for land and wildlife conservation.
That's a good point.
The sports shooters, we are the largest contributors to wildlife and land conservation in the United States of America. The largest monetary contributors. Please continue.
You're right. I'm going to give you just a couple of things that the SHARE Act with the HPA inside of it sort of entails. So obviously one would be removing suppressors from the NFA and removing the tax. Essentially, a NICS check, background check, would be run as a long gun, which, side note, like we just talked about, would mean you could buy them interstate.
Cool.
Which would be pretty nice. It also makes sure not to preempt the legality of suppressors in the 42 states that currently allow them. And let's see, it will also preempt states from levying additional taxes on them. So when they take that $200 federal tax away, the states aren't going to be able to enact their own. And here's a strange one that I don't remember reading from the HPA before, but it says Section 1705 is basically granting the ATF 365 days to destroy all suppressor-related records from the National Firearms Registration and Transfer Record.
What?
So
That would be awesome.
if this goes through,
I kind of planned to do that myself within the next year anyway.
okay.
I just didn't know how to start a fire at the ATF. Because, they regulate that.
Regulate fires?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that's exactly what they do.
Oh, firearms. My bad.
right.
Yeah, that joke fell flat. I'm sorry.
No, it's not the first time.
Nor will it be the last, my friend.
Oh, I can guarantee it.
Fear not.
So this is actually a pretty cool little section
great.
here.
Yeah.
That's good news. They don't need our information as it is. And I know a lot of people are on the fence about buying them because they get so much information, fingerprints and photos and
Yeah, but
firstborn and all that.
have those folks heard of Edward Snowden? Because these people have everything on you they want already. They're not. It's funny to me that I talked to a guy.
Do you have a Facebook account?
Right.
Well, okay. They don't. I mean, what's fingerprints after that?
I mean, well, I talked to a guy tonight, and he said, "Well, what's the process if I want to buy a gun?" And I was telling him, I asked if he had CWP, and he goes, "Man, I don't have CWP." So you should get one. It makes buying a gun easier in South Carolina. He said, "Well, I don't want them having all my information." And I thought, but they already have it. Anything they want to know about you, they already know. They're doing it illegally. They are seizing your information. They are watching you. They are monitoring you in ways you cannot imagine. They already have everything they want on you. What are you worried about? A photograph and a couple of fingerprints? What are you worried about? What are they going to do with that they can't do with every other piece of dirt they already have on you? The government, let this sink in for a minute. The government knows your web browsing history.
Wait a minute.
To a T. Everything, and I'm telling you this for a fact. If you've typed it into Google and then erased it, the government can see it. They are watching your keystrokes if they feel like it.
Facebook captures things you write and then don't actually
Search.
hit enter.
Yeah. Listen, that's true. Yeah, as a post. Yeah, true enough. Don't think the government doesn't already know. Okay? That's all I'm saying. All right. Sorry, go ahead. But yes, burn our papers. It would be nice to have them not have it on record.
I assume because they're saying all related records, that would mean fingerprints, photos, serial numbers, etc.
I hope so. Man, that'd be great. By the way, the Hearing Protection Act was introduced by South Carolina Republican Jeff Duncan, who you might remember from last week we talked about. He hosted the informational shoot at the U.S. Capitol to help educate fellow members of Congress on what suppressors and silencers actually are. That's great. So hopefully, and I say that because he is the guy that introduced the SHARE Act as well. 148 co-sponsors on the Hearing Protection Act, and then he's working to roll it into the SHARE Act as well.
Slowly gaining some support in the Senate.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? All right. Let's see. We're almost at the hour mark, which means, or did we already go over it? Yeah, we're about 3.5 minutes shy. So I don't want to get a lecture from my dad about how we can't keep it under an hour. But I do want to. Did we ever find out what Zukov meant?
I actually did.
Okay. Can you tell me real fast? If you're not familiar, AKs have a Zukov style, and I'm not really sure what that means. So I asked and couldn't get a straight answer. But if you got it, I'd like to hear it.
So Magpul makes a Zukov stock.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think that's most of what we're referring to. So what I found out using my Google Foo, and now the NSA knows.
You're so smart.
Is the Zukov is actually the name of a World War II general.
Okay.
For the Soviets. His name was Georgy
Zukov?
Konstantinovich Zukov. Georgy Konstantinovich Zukov.
Modern day Georgie Turkey.
Right. And he was the Soviet general who, during World War II, directed the counteroffensive at Stalingrad, relieved Leningrad, and captured Berlin.
For the Soviets that were murdering 20 million people?
Correct.
Same Soviets that were murdering 20 million people?
Turns out it's the same guys.
And we name stuff after him. Unbelievable. Really, Magpul? Seriously? Is it only Magpul, or is that like a style that everybody does?
I think that's just Magpul's name for their stock.
God bless. What a bunch of morons, man. I mean, seriously.
They should have just called it the Hula Girl stock or something like that.
I just don't get it. You know, look, when I go to gun shows and I see Hitler propaganda pieces and swastika flags, it takes a lot for me to not go to those people, smack them in the mouth, and tear that crap off the walls. These are symbols that murdered millions of innocent people. And I'm not against erasing history. I'm not. But what kind of person are you if that is hanging in your home? Well, I'm a historian. I want to have these artifacts. I want to know what there is to know. Fine. Have an artifact. One. You can have a artifact. One.
Buy some books.
And be done. Yeah, buy some books on the guy and put them up on the shelf. I have a Che Guevara book somewhere around here right now, nice and thick, and it's all about what a jerk Che was and how he murdered homosexuals and minorities and dissenting reporters. I get it. Learn about it. Don't forget it. Talk about it. Don't forget it. You don't need to hang it on your wall. Okay.
One of my best friends, his dad has a pretty substantial library in their house. He's a big World War II buff. And I remember the first time I walked in their room with all the books, and I saw these swastikas on a lot of the spines of the books.
Yeah.
And I kind of did that thing where I turned really slowly to him, and I was like, hey, man, like, what's that about?
You a Nazi?
And he's like, nah, my dad's just a big history buff.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. But that doesn't mean like parades around in the house like with his arm up, like with, a little mustache on, like.
Yeah, and look, and again, I'm not against, like, if you have a helmet that actually belonged to a German soldier or whatever, and you think, it's a piece of history, I kind of get that. But I don't get reveling in the paraphernalia of evil. I don't have Klansman hoods in my closet or in my office and go, that's a piece of history.
You're not a Democrat.
I live in South Carolina, and when the Democrats ran things down here, they wore those. And so that's a piece of South Carolina history. I don't have that. It's the exact same thing, except I don't think the Klan murdered 6 million people or 20 million people. I'm really fascinated by the fact that people will celebrate the Soviets and they'll celebrate Nazis like that. It's not a celebration. It's just, well, what is it? You're naming things after the guy, and that's what he's famous for. Killing innocent people. God bless. I just don't understand it. Magpul should know better. but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, they make Hula Girl T-shirts now, so they obviously don't know jack about a whole lot of anything.
Dude,
but,
get some gloves.
right. Let me get my Magpul wallet out, so I'm tactic cool. Good grief! Like, how dumb do they think we are? I mean, obviously, we're dumb enough we had to look up Zhukov because I had no idea what that meant. But to find out it's a Soviet general, just, I don't know why that makes me
I could have lived my whole life not knowing it. I'd have been fine with that.
It makes me mad. Makes me mad. All right. Did we miss anything? We did. We missed a lot. There was a lot of other stuff to get to, like my dad moment in Starbucks today. It was a bit sobering. I'll take 2 minutes and tell this story. I go to the mall today, God forbid, but I needed a couple of dongles from Apple now that I got the new laptop that doesn't really allow old school USB. I don't know. Apparently it's a thing. So anyway, I needed a couple of little adapters, and I stopped and grabbed a couple so I could actually plug my phone into my computer. And I go to Starbucks to grab a coffee because they employ veterans and they pay for the college education of the spouse of veterans, unlike Black Rifle Coffee Company. They don't do that. And I'm standing there, man, and I'm looking down the line, and I realize, can you tell it was a bad day at work, by the way? Can you tell everybody I dealt with at work today was just a jackass?
Little salty.
I had a guy, we have a display on the counter. Now I'm just going to rant, so give me a second. I'm sorry. There's a display on the counter.
Didn't see this coming.
Explaining our rebate. Not our rebate. Smith & Wesson currently has a rebate on 3 firearms. God is my witness. Pull the tape. I swear to you this happened. I swear to you, I swear to you, I swear to you, this happened. I would post the video online, except I see no reason to involve my employer with this podcast. So just please believe me that this happened. Swear to you. God is my witness. I walk around the corner after helping someone who was a nice person, and this dude, he's one of those guys that shouldn't be tucking his shirt in because his belly's too big for it, but he does it anyway. And he's standing there with his hands on his hips like, you know, why is no one here yet to help me and bow to my every wish? And I get it. I don't want him to be waiting. So I walk up. I'm like, hey, sir, how you doing? You need help with anything? And I swear to you, I thought he was deaf. I thought he was deaf. Because he turns around and there's a little, I don't know, it's like a placard. Well, you know what I'm talking about. It's like made out of thin cardboard almost. Like a heavy paper, you know, and it explains what the Smith & Wesson rebate is right now. He literally, so his back was to me when I walked up because he was looking at my coworker who was helping somebody, and he turns to me, looks me in the eye, waits probably 2 seconds to say anything, and then proceeds to not say anything while he grabs the little display and turns it around towards me and then drops it on the counter. And I go, can I help you with something? And he goes, 9mm with safety. And I said, oh,
yes, they exist.
Yeah. I said, you mean the Smith & Wesson 9mm with the safety on it and from, you know, for the shield? And he goes, yeah. I said, sure. So we take a couple of steps down. Of course, after I fix the display, he just threw on the counter. And we take a couple steps down. I start showing it to him. And I kid you not, he takes it from me and goes, show me how to work this. I go, okay.
That's when you go, sir, lessons are $75.
Yeah, right? Seriously. So I did it. And here's what's great. I said, sure, yeah. And I took it back from him because he had it in his hand with the slide locked to the back. Take it back from him, and I go, okay, so this is the slide. The slide is locked to the back. There's a slide lock here on the side, and what I'm going to do to send that slide home is I'm going to put pressure on the slide. I'm going to press down on my slide lock, and I'm going to release the slide. I'm going to be careful to not keep my fingers in the hole so they don't get pinched. He goes, yeah, I know all that. I said, okay.
All right, well, I'll take that $75 now.
Right. I said, well, what exactly did you need to know? And he's like, well, I mean, how's it work? I said, well, how so, sir? What's the trigger pull on it? Okay. It's probably going to be about 6 to 6.5 pounds on this one. It feels a little bit heavier than a Glock trigger. Glock triggers usually come stock about 5.5. Yeah. Okay. And he was just a jackass like that the entire stinking time. Comes time to do the paperwork, and I go, sir, do you have if I can borrow your driver's license, we'll get started. And if you have a CWP, we can use that as well. He pulls his CWP out and hands it to me. I said, thank you. Can I borrow your driver's license as well? He goes, you said you could do it with just one of them. And he just looks at me. I said, no, sir. I'm going to need both. Got to verify that you got both. He goes, I was like, why is it a fight? Like, why is everything I'm trying to do with you a fight? Why is it a fight? All right. What I'm saying is, it's a bad day.
America.
It's a bad day at work. And so I'm staying around. I'm thinking, I just want to go home and get on the podcast and vent to nobody. So here I am doing it. All right. So
I hope he's listening.
I'm back in the Starbucks line where they hire veterans, tens of thousands of veterans, by the way, and they don't force them to do dumb Instagram videos and make crude jokes, and they don't put the F word on their coffee. So I go there because I have children, a family, and respect for myself. And there I am, and I look down the line, and it's this odd moment. There was a girl right in front of me who looked almost like a spitting image of my neighbor's daughter, okay? My neighbor has a 9-year-old daughter that, God bless my boys, she is going to be the measure by which all women are judged for their lives, man, because they love her. And she's a great little girl. She's older than them, and she'll come over and get them outside, and they all jump on the trampoline, and she's just as sweet as it gets. But there's a girl next to me in line at Starbucks who's, I don't know, I'm an old man, so maybe she's 15. I mean, I'm going to be nice and say 15. And then I realized she was by herself. Like, I thought she was with the two people in front of her, but then she's just there. And I start thinking to myself, man, where are her parents? Like, I just felt like she was way too young to be in Starbucks in the mall by herself. And I just caught myself, I wasn't like, I'm going to sound like a creep, but I was just like watching her thinking, man, am I so old that I feel like that's a child? Like, I feel like that's a baby girl in here, and she's all by herself. And I kind of want to just walk over and be like, don't worry, I got a gun. And if anything goes down, I got your back. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those moments where you see somebody and you're like, I hope they know I got, I'd look out for them if it hit the fan right now. But man, I just felt like, well, here's my old man dad moment for the day, I guess, because I just felt like, and then to top it all off, the kids I thought she was with had to have been 15 and 16, obviously on a date. And that girl was wearing next to nothing. And then I'm standing there, and I have a daughter, so I'm looking at this girl, and I think to myself, man, I would kill Abby. Like, I would find her out in public dressed like that with some boy. First, I would kill him just to prove the point. I'd be like, you're going to have to watch him die now. And then I would kill her to make sure it never happened again. Like, it was just unbelievable, the clothes she was wearing. And I'm sure that the parents have nothing to do with it. I'm actually probably positive that girl left the house in a sweatshirt and, and some baggy shorts. And she's like, well, I'm going
to the library.
Yeah, I'm going to go meet Luke at the library. We're going to work on that summer project together. And then, she gets all that off when she's in the car. But she's way too young. Man, I felt like an old man. Consequence, by the way, of being in the mall in the middle of the day.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because the teenagers have nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. And so it dawns on me, well, I used to do this too. Like, you can go to the mall for free. You don't have to spend any money to be in the mall, so you just do that. But I
was having a conversation with somebody at work, and we were talking about one of the other people we work with.
Well, of course.
Who was born, well, not about them. They were in the conversation. And I asked them how old they were. They said they were born in 97.
Jeez.
And I was like, oh, cool. I was in high school.
Right? That was 2 years before I graduated high school.
So that was my old man moment. I was like, all right, well, cool.
That makes you 20, though.
I could already drive.
20 years old. That's crazy, man. We're old men now. All right, hey, listen, we appreciate you hanging out. And, hey, thanks for telling your friend that we exist. Appreciate that. That's how we spread the good word about the podcast. And, listen, we paid up, and we're ready to go, at least one of us, to North Carolina for the Haley Strategic D5 handgun course. You want to take a class, change your shooting style, change your life, change your approach to things mentally. I was in a conversation with a friend the other day over the phone, and we were talking a little bit about, public speaking anxiety. And I said to him, you might not believe this, but if you want to learn some real good keys on how to deal with what would be called a body alarm response, high stress, environments you're not used to, sudden overwhelming, sensations, you should come to North Carolina and take this class with me. He kind of laughed and was like, yeah, right, I'd be kind of out of place. So I'm telling you right now, it's a lot of classroom work. It's a lot of listening, a lot of science, a lot of classroom work. Half shooting, half classroom. Trust me, look at it as a good time of 3 days of shooting, but also look at it as a way to change your life and find mechanisms to create the routine that will help you address these public speaking anxiety issues. And I believe that firmly. So my point here is, if you want to go.
If you haven't done it, that sounds very melodramatic, by the way.
Well, maybe.
However.
Does it? Okay.
I'm only saying that to say I can confirm that that's true. That what you'll learn doesn't... It is obviously firearms based, but you can use the same principles in your everyday life.
Well, let me tell you about when I had cancer.
You had cancer?
I did. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it here.
No, that's crazy.
This is a story that, no. Truthfully, though, here's what I'll tell you. I don't know if I want to tell you the whole thing because I kind of want to leave the worm on the hook in front of you to bait you to come take the class. But all right, I'll say it this way. When Patrick and I went to Tulsa and took the Haley Strategic class 2 years ago, and then a year ago, I got diagnosed with a very treatable form of cancer, in case you haven't heard, and I'm very melodramatic about it. I was on the phone with my older sister, and I just called everybody to say, look, you might hear through the grapevine that I have cancer, but I don't have like real cancer. Okay, the best analogy I can come up with is if they're like, Kris was wounded in combat, but really I was just like in Afghanistan and fell off a ladder. Like, that's what's going on here. Okay, I didn't get shot, I'm not bleeding out, there's no life change. Well, maybe there's a little bit. And I'm not trying to make light of cancer because I know it's very serious and affects people in different ways. But my cancer was very treatable from the start. We knew that. They told me, you're going to be fine. It's completely curable. Don't worry about it. But when you have to call your sisters and your mother and your brother and your dad and these different people, and you have to tell your wife it is cancer, that's not easy. It can be a little dramatic and frightening for people. So I was talking to my older sister, and she was a little concerned. She was more concerned than I think she needed to be. And I said to her, let me just tell you a story. And I repeated a story that Travis told in the class in Tulsa about a woman who told him a story. And Travis's point of the story was, that lady has suffered in a way you can never understand. And as a father, the story truly hit home, like rung a bell like no other. And so Travis's point was, the lady has suffered in ways you can never understand. So try to realize somebody out there's always got it worse. And your job is to wake up, do something different with your day that helps you become a better person. So always wake up feeling empty, ready to learn, doing more than you did the day before, and you're going to be all right. And so I repeated the story to my sister, and she's like, wow. I said, yeah, but the reason I'm telling that is to say that it may sound melodramatic to go, this will change your life, but it will. It will. And in a way, even in hard times and circumstances, there's things I learned there that I look back and I go, I'm kind of glad I learned that because it's applicable. So consider me melodramatic or whatever, but I'm telling you, man, it'll be a good time. And listen, my spot is held. I'll be there. So I hope you'll come join us. It'll be a really good time. We'll get out there and keep this in mind, by the way. I am trying to sell you on it. I don't care if you think it's a commercial. Think of this. Travis is big on telling you that it's your knowledge. You can come in and record. You can do what you need to do. So if you want to get some cool video and have a good time and learn some new things, it's a great way to do it. So I hope you'll join us. We have details up on our Facebook page, on Instagram as well. Just go to feltrecoilshow.com. Find us on all the socials. And I think that's about all I got. Yeah? All right. Good. We will see you next time for more Felt Recoil podcast. In the meantime, find us online, feltrecoilshow.com.